Welcome back. When we were together last time, we talked about the different elements of art and the rise and fall of the Medicis, or at least the decline of the Medicis, we'll say. But as you look here, the third in line, so again, you've seen Cosimo, you've seen his son, and now his grandson Lorenzo has died. You're going to see the Medici family falling completely from grace, and because of the way that they had treated other people during their time of being in charge, they are too now going to be pushed into exile. It's interesting. Maybe you've heard the phrase turnabout is fair play. Well, this is turnabout. The people of Florence have had enough of the Medicis and they're going to push them away. Now, the hard thing, though, is when you get rid of strong leadership, there's many times going to be a vacuum. There's many times going to be a hole. If you've had somebody that's been super strict or super hardcore, when you then remove that person, there's many times going to be a vacuum. There's not going to be quite the same level of stability. And also, too, somebody might rise up, and that's what's going to happen here. Definitely not somebody the stature of the Medicis, but a priest, a Dominican at that, is going to rise up. Now, I had a student who was, I think, part Italian some years ago, and he was able to roll his R's and be able to say this really well, but I'll do my best. Girolamo Savonarola. That wasn't very good. But some of you guys who are in Spanish, maybe in one or two, are able to roll your R's. Maybe at this point you're rolling your eyes at how bad I did there. Anyhow, as you look here, this guy is going to say the Pope, and there's going to be a general kind of pagan spirit of the Renaissance have now so fallen away from God that they are of no value, that there is going to be this negative quality to what they have brought to the people of Florence. Instead, he said, our city state, the people that live here ought to get back to simple faith. There's something that we have lost as we've pursued money and we've pursued power. When we've gotten caught up in all these other things, we have turned our back on God. And so, because of that, we need to get back to simple faith, to allow now an opportunity to return to what we know to be true. After he's going to become the leader of Florence, people start agreeing and saying, yeah, that's something that we need to do. They're going to give him quite a bit of authority. And he looks to the Venetians and says, what kind of government is working there? You'll remember we had the Golden Book. We had this leadership that was going to make a lot of the decisions. And so the constitution that they're going to bring about in Florence is going to be similar to that of Venice. He's also looking around and saying, you know what, taxes have been kind of out of whack. The way that we've collected them, the way that we've operated within that, it hasn't worked out very well. Same for the justice system, the way that we're bringing criminals to justice or the way that things are being handled. It just isn't as appropriate or as efficient as it should be, maybe as accurate as it could be. So, because of that, he is going to now work to bring about some consistency in that area. Finally, he says, you know what, we want to make Florence a place that people can respect. I don't know if maybe you've heard this speech or maybe have heard of this group, but early on, there was a group called the Puritans that had come to America. And one of the most famous things that was said was that they wanted to make it a city on a hill, something for people to look at and be able, not in a pride way, although some people I think began to take it that way. It was more this idea that people ought to look at that point, the Puritans, but in this case, the city of Florence, and say, there's something unique about the faith that's happening there. To attain that or to be able to achieve that, Savonarola says, you know what, the leaders of the art movement, those that are involved in academics, those that have been studying Plato, because these individuals, whether it be the students, the teachers, the artists, they're pursuing things that are not of God, we're going to get rid of them. We're going to kick them out of the city state. But it isn't just that he's getting rid of them. He is going to collect all of the works that he deems to be immoral, the stuff that he sees as unholy, and he puts it all together in bonfires throughout Florence and he sets it ablaze. Again, we talked about this in China. I don't know if you remember that, the burning of the books, but we're also going to see this. I've been talking with my sophomores about Nazi Germany, and they too are going to burn books. It's basically a way eliminating or whitewashing and saying we don't want any recollection, any connection with those things. And so we're just going to eliminate them. And that's what he does to stuff at this time. Well, he begins and has been talking about the Pope, and the Pope finally takes umbrage and says, you know what, if you don't stop, there's the legal jargon or terminology, cease and desist. We're going to now shut you down. Not only you, but the whole city-state of Florence. If you don't stop talking, we're going to come in and eliminate you from being able to speak out. What's interesting is, as we think about this movement in Italy, it's not the same, but it's interesting to see some similarities to a movement that we're going to see happening in Germany, led by a guy named Martin Luther. Hopefully, as you connect the dots back, there's going to be an opportunity for you to say, hey, this is something we remember, the way that Savonarola was treated here versus what Luther was. But both of them say, you know what? We believe that what we're saying is true. Now, there's a little bit more grace, I guess, at some points for Luther, but Savonarola says the Pope's got to go. He has been an evil source of power. This guy's got to be kicked out. Unfortunately for him, the people are not going to be in agreement with Savonarola. They said, you know what? We're tired of you. We're tired of your message. We're tired of what it is threatening to bring about in Florence. And so he is declared to be a heretic. I think that many of you guys are aware that there's usually, as we look back at history, a certain punishment that's carried out for the sin or crime of heresy, speaking against God or against those that are going to be representatives of God, similar to the Pope. I think that perhaps you're aware that burning at the stake has been the traditional punishment that's going to be carried out, and that's what's going to happen here to poor Savonarola. 1495, he is burned at the stake. You can see kind of the artist's depiction of that there on the left side. You can even see on the far left of that image the Duomo going up above the ground level of Florence. Not a real good go for Savonarola. Well, as a result, you're going to see there being some chaos within Florence, but ultimately, again, that will be locked down, or I should say minimized, and you're going to see government returning back to Florence. Well, we're going to turn our attention to Milan a little bit more on Friday. We'll look a little bit at what's going to be happening there, how they're very different from the other two. And then we'll just briefly mention some other groups that are going to be existing within Italy and how they're going to play a part within the dynamics of Italian power. Hey, I hope that you guys have a great week, are able to savor what's ahead, and we will see you on Friday. Have a good rest of the week.